What's up, guys? It's Bombos, and for today's video, we will be focusing on the lovely, the amazing, and personally one of my favorite tricks, the Pop Shove. Pop Shove is, of course, one of those tricks that is essential, but at the same time isn't like any other trick that you've learned so far, that being the ollie, frontside 180, and maybe backside 180. Now, this trick, by level of difficulty, to some people, it's harder than a backside 180. To me, I think I learned the Pop Shove-it / Shove-its way easier than I've learned the backside 180. To this day, I still struggle with the backside 180s, although I can land them pretty much every time. The Pop Shove-it is different in that it doesn't require a slide. So if you're, let's say, you're going to a party, you got the coolest pair of shoes on, but there just happens to be a skateboard there, you want to show off your skills. Pop Shove-it is the go-to trick because it does not ruin your shoes. So no slide means that your board will level out. It's one of those tricks where your board levels out based on your balance ability. So that's what makes this trick hard. The fact that you can't rely on your front foot to stabilize your board. In fact, your front foot's gonna come up, and we'll get into that later. But for right now, it's important to recognize that you can do this in whatever order you want. If you want to go to our backside 180 video, you can 100% do that. If you wanted to learn frontside 180s before, you can absolutely do that. There's no particular order. These three tricks sort of work hand in hand, and they're cohesive in that they are fairly basic. That being said, the pop is also very different. So let me run you down the whole motion of this Pop Shove-it. So, you got your feet, I'm goofy of course. You can also be regular if you want, but we'll do this in a goofy position. So, your back foot is gonna wanna be, like if I scooch up a bit, like right along this end of the tail. So like, right here, I'd say, and sometimes you can be in like the very back if you wanna get extra like saucy with it. But I think for beginners, and even if it's just more comfortable for you, lying your foot just like you would do an ollie, but just a tiny bit more on the edge so that you can get more leverage. Now this front foot is gonna be either right here. It's not the most stable, but it'll get your board high if you manage to learn the pop and get the pop really down. You can put it right here, which is where I technically like it. Or you could even put it on this front bolt if you want the most control. If I'm doing a shove-it, which means there's no pop required, and the board literally just goes like that with no pop, it just is like a little shift like that. Your foot's probably gonna want to be here, way more up, because the shove-it isn't essentially a useful trick. It's good for transitions, but you can't really do it off or up anything like effectively. So that's why Pop Shove-its are the general genre of the trick. But for beginners, what I would do is get your shove-its down. I was never good at shove-its, so I was lazy, and I decided to go right into Pop Shove-its. And you can do that, but I would recommend going into shove-its, because to this day I still can't shove it. And well, I can, but like not as like first try as like my Pop Shove-its, which I have first try, because I've gotten the Pop Shove-it sort of ingrained in my memory, but it took way too long. I could have probably learned Pop Shove-its way faster and way better if I had learned the shove-its first. So in the shove-it, it's gonna be the same position, foot up here. It can be your foot, if I'm gonna stand on my board. So my back foot's like on this edge, you can like see it overhanging a little bit, and then my front foot, if you can see, is gonna be like right here. So you can put it like completely straight, or you can sort of angle it at like a 45-degree angle, and that's gonna allow for there to be a nice little tiny rotation, tiny enough to look cool, but also not that big that it's like incredibly hard. So once you have that motion fluidly down, you would go into Pop Shove-its, and I'm gonna run through the motion of a shove-it right now. So Pop Shove-it, people who want to learn Pop Shove-its, wait just 1 second. The shove-it just requires you to lift up your right foot, or whatever foot's in front of you that you normally use to slide the board on an ollie. So lift it up completely, just forget about it, so which is different from an ollie. And let this back foot just tilt the board, kind of like you're doing a manual, but just like a little tiny, the slightest like half pop. And then as soon as you're like halfway there, you're gonna flick. So what you do with your foot is, if you can see it, is you go like, that's how you're gonna get the board around and get the board around in a way that's level to you. If you go like completely like that, here, I'll demonstrate, and hopefully I don't knock out the fence behind me. A lot of times people, if they want to shove it, they'll not be as comfortable, and they'll like try to like do that. No, that's, you're trying to, by that logic and by that amount of strength, you might as well be hitting a 3-shove. And that's way too advanced. Even I can't 3-shove. So yeah, just learning to control that movement is key. And this would make more sense, the control aspect. You can easily land a shove it with like the worst like flick like that, and you can still probably land it. But I wouldn't even focus on landing the shove-its after you have that flick down, because, well, I wouldn't say that. I would say that you should do what you feel is best, because what I mean by landing the shove-its is not necessarily landing them, more so as to getting that motion down where you essentially could be able to land them. If you feel like if you commit and you land like one shove-it, you're good. You can move on to pop shove-its, which aren't that different. But if you feel like you need more time getting the most important movement down of the flick, then I would say stay on it. And a good tip for this is that if you just don't want to have both feet on the board and you want to practice that motion, just put that foot on the end of the board, like so. Be careful not to hit your shins, because that would suck, and you don't want that in your day. Just like focus on the not the pop movement, like don't go like that, but go more like that. It's hard with a shove it, but just get that ankle. You don't even, your board doesn't have to like land upwards. It's kind of hard with one foot, because nothing's catching the other side of the board. But just get that ankle movement down. You see how the board doesn't go like under me and it doesn't even full rotate? It doesn't matter, because that your front weight's gonna ultimately be the factor in getting that board like situated mid-air or mid-shove. But just focus on like that motion right there. And when you're comfortable, that's when you can start focusing on getting that board going full rotation with it, and just do the same exact motion. And I'll promise you'll hit that shove it in like no time, because all that, even if you don't do it right the first few times, a shove it doesn't require a pop, so it's going to be really simple to fix what you're doing wrong. So like, if you like end up doing that a lot, that just means you're flicking a little too hard. So what I would do is then you just adjust. Okay, I need to flick softer. Oh wow, I just hit a crack. So I need to go softer, and boom, I fell because stationary tricks. Yeah, and also about that, like I landed that, but like due to the fact that my board is stationary, it's gonna be hard to land these. So I would recommend you move at like this sort of speed in order to land these tricks like cleanly. But again, I'm no shove-it expert. I've skipped shove-its, and I honestly don't think they look that cool, but they are essential if you want to get that back movement down. And I say this because going into pop shove-its now, this board is gonna almost come up vertically if you get this wrong. And that's the scariest thing ever, because then it'll end up nicking one of your shins. So the pop shove-it is the same exact, but you're just going to hit the ground this time. So just do an ollie pop, same foot position as anything. I prefer to go 45 degrees, not straight, but that's just habit. It doesn't really matter. And then ollie pop, and then as soon as you ollie pop simultaneously, I'll show you the video in a second with commentary, but this foot should be lifting up just like you're jumping. So no slide, don't do that. That's gonna just be bad news if you try to if you're looking for a pop shove it, you'll end up probably doing like a half varial kickflip. Bad. What you want to do, lift up this foot as you do that like motion that I showed you, like that little scoop, and your board, if you do it right, should like, it's hard to do with your hands, but like this, catch. Catch it with both feet. A lot of times people will see pros and be like, oh, I want to catch it front foot and then put my left foot on. Don't. You'll end up either eating it or landing too far up on your board, and that'll cause wheel bite, and wheel bite is not fun. I don't need to explain what that is. You could look it up, but just don't try and do it. What you're gonna do is just pop. There you go. I'll show you a slow-mo video of one of the times putting a really clean pop shove it. And just make sure to focus on my back foot. Front foot, there's not really much to it other than just bringing it up and making sure that your board stays under you so that you can slam it down at the same time as your back foot. Your back foot just does that flicking motion, then it comes back up with your right, and voila, you have your pop shove. All right, so for our first video segment here, we're gonna go over just a basic shove it as I explained. And as you can see, that prep, so you're leaning down, getting ready to use that downward force to push the board up. And as you can see right here, for shove it, as soon as my back foot, as I'm lifting my body up, my back foot just goes directly into that scoop motion, as you can see here. Not overly powerful like a pop shove it, but just enough to get that board around without needing to pop. And as you see, as I do this, my front foot gets well out of the way. It's like just completely disregarded. You don't need it. And then that board's gonna come around. And as you notice, my feet are sort of getting closer together. It's something that I like to do. You can land on it any way you want, but I like to get my feet super high, close together, so I can spread out at the end and land on the bolts. Now, this is what I don't like about shove-its, is that they're not like the cleanest trick ever. So there's gonna be like, you'll probably land more backside than front side, or more front side than backside, but it's all part of a shove-it. So now, if we go into our wonderful pop shove-it, already a difference, I'm prepping way more. If you're going into a pop shove-it, I think that you should be almost at a full squat position so you can get enough force on that pop down in the scoop. And it's the same almost virtual step, but the only difference is that notice my front foot popping, kind of like an ollie pop, but then I use that scoop, like right there, that scoop, and then that board's edge will pop on the ground. The tail will come up, and notice how it's way higher in the air and it's almost vertical. And then my front foot catches as it stabilizes and my back foot follows. And this is all happening, I'll please replay it again. This is all happening while my shoulders are square to the board. But super satisfying. If your shoulders aren't squared to the board, we go over here. This is a perfect example of what happens a lot of the times. You have that pop motion almost perfectly, but my shoulders are twisted to the right in this case, which is common. It's easy to fix. You just need to focus on staying square to that board. So I'm like turning to the right, and notice how that pop like almost doesn't, like I don't scoop my foot naturally, and that board is kind of coming up super rocket is what you call it. And then I end up landing way on the nose. Like, eek, that is literally so ugly. Don't ever want to do this. You want to keep your shoulders square to the board, because imagine if you're riding super fast. No bueno. So let's review this clip again. That scoop and the land. So if we want to replay it, boom. Now, it's not going to come like that. It requires practice. But I would say a good step is to literally just practice that flick motion. Doesn't even have to land under you. Just go like 1 foot. Start there. Take it, get your building blocks of this trick built up to the point where you can cohesively get these motions, these different motions in the trick in like a progressive order. Because if you just try to go head over heels, pop shove it, I guarantee you something's gonna go wrong. And if you individualize each step, you can sort of like pinpoint your weaknesses. Like I can tell you one of my weaknesses for pop shove-its was that when I was moving, my board would either go in front of me, like I was landing behind it, or I was landing right here. I discussed why I was landing right here earlier. It's because you're just lifting your foot up almost a little too late, and you're trying to pop a little too high, and those together, that's bad. Doesn't really happen with shove-its, but it's a bad weight distribution. And the other thing is keeping your shoulders square to this board. Not your hips. Your hips are gonna be actively moving, but your shoulders, because your shoulders guide your hips, your legs, everything. So just focusing on staying square over your board will mean the world. Now, 2 common problems that people have are the board goes primo. Now, this is probably scary, so I wouldn't like, this is like the scariest thing that could happen. It's not like something you should be worrying about because there are easy fixes, but if it does happen, it might ruin your confidence for the trick, and we don't want that. So to limit primo ever happening, so that means landing right here, and then your board either goes here or there and you slip out, just make sure you control that pop. And again, it goes down to the step where you just try and pop, land. Other problem that is common is just not being able to commit. And that comes down to mentally being prepared to know where that board's gonna end up. I've come to learn that with the way I pop shove it, my board ends up staying below me for like at least in the air, for at least like a second and a half. So I've learned to take that time, that long amount of time that it just hangs there in the air due to like inertia, and refocus my feet up like close together and then spread out as I land. So it's like a natural jumping motion. And while doing this, I'm keeping my shoulders square and I can catch the board. What I would focus on for you is that if you have all these individual steps down, you can hit a pop shove it with like 1 foot, and maybe 1 foot of yours always falls off, is really focusing on leaning over the board so that the pop shove it's always gonna go in front of you a little bit, because that's just the way that physics work when it comes to this. If you did a reverse of the pop shove it, called a front shove, it would go behind you, so you have to jump backwards. But pop shove it, you go in front of you, so I would focus on jumping in front of you. It's all trial and error, really. There's different problems for everybody. So if you have like an issue, and you can send us a video at skatingthroughcorona@gmail.com. It's in the description. And we can help you out with being able to actually situate these like tricks to your problems. Everyone has their different problems. It's hard, but these are the most common ones. Now, if you want to do that, just send us a slow motion video. We can analyze it, and I guarantee you it can be solved, because I felt the same way. A lot of times when I did pop shove-its, they weren't going the best. They would land primo, or they would go escape for me. They would land behind me. But then I learned to situate my weight through many errors, countless hours of practice, and now it's one of the most fun tricks to land, because when you land it, it sounds nice. It's one of those tricks. So yeah, I look forward to any feedback you guys have, any videos, questions, concerns, whatever, and I will see you for the next video.